All right, well, we've been talking about the Prodigal Son through Rembrandt's painting. Let's go ahead and throw that up there. This was the painting that Rembrandt painted, a Dutch painter. Now it's in Russia, this painting is, but it's seen as quoted some of the best paintings in the world, one of these great masters, Rembrandt himself. Let's go on to the next one. Tonight we're going to be talking about the younger son, the one who comes back home, the one who runs away, and the one who comes home. Let's go ahead and read that. By the way, the old man in this painting, the father who's receiving the son back with open arms, that's actually a self-portrait of Rembrandt himself as he was nearing 60-some years, right about 2 years before he died, and he's old at this point, and he painted himself into this. So Luke 15, let's see where this story comes from. It says in verse 11, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided up his property between them. Not long after that, the young son got together all that he had, all the stuff, all the estate that he had gotten from his dad, and set off for a distant country." Someone say distant land. "And there he squandered his wealth in wild living." Rembrandt's life himself actually had a lot of similarities to the Prodigal Son story. And so right here is a picture of young Rembrandt of about 30 years old. And that was young back in the day. And here he is with his wife, Sakija. Her name was, it's a really weird Saskia. Sacagawea. It was... Sure, it's like all Bible names. You know, it's not a Bible name, but it's all Bible names. You just make it up and go. And here he was with her. He's got her hand, a little bit low on the back there, you know what I'm saying? And he's got his half-drunk glass. Now, I cropped this picture, but the glass goes on forever, and he's already drank half of it. Here he is, drunk out of his mind, eyes glazed over with sexual desires, and hers are as well. Here he is in all his fancy clothes and his plume on his hat. And right here, this curtain here is actually known to be a part of the red light, before there was red light district of Amsterdam. And so here he is in a brothel, living it up, as he says, as he thinks, getting drunk and all this crazy stuff. Rembrandt, he liked the ladies. He liked the ladies a lot. He was arrogant. He made a lot. He spent a lot, and he lost a lot of money. He was known for wearing these outlandish hats and just extravagant costumes. He was this young painter. He thought he was something awesome. But just as he's on top of the world and gaining all this success and wearing these outlandish hats, everything falls apart for him. And I feel really kind of sorry for the guy. He loses his first son in 1635, his first daughter in 1638, second daughter 1640, his wife Sakia in 1642, leaving him with a 9-month-old son, Titus. So he kind of gets with this lady Gertije, Gertje, Gertije. Sure. Who was Titus's nurse, kind of gets with her, it's kind of like, they got a thing, and that goes bad, so he puts her in an asylum. That was a thing. Yeah, you could do that when you didn't like your wife, just call her crazy and put her in an asylum and move on. So he marries another lady, has a son, who dies in 1652. His popularity plummets, financial problems get severe. He sells all of his possessions in Amsterdam, his furniture, all the artifacts that he's collected, all the paintings from other painters, to keep away from bankruptcy. In 1658, he's totally poor, has nothing left. Then his new wife dies in 1663. 3 years later, Titus, his son, dies. When Rembrandt himself dies in 1669, he's become poor, a poor, lonely man survived only by his daughter, Cornelia. But by then, something has changed inside of Rembrandt. He's not the same young man who thought he had the whole world by the tail anymore. He's not on top of the world. Suddenly, he realizes that he's not God. Suddenly, the scales begin to come off of his eyes. The things that once blinded him and allured him, and he was magnetic to, all these things, all these promises, all these people, all this popularity, fame, women, beer, all the stuff, all those scales begin to fall from his eyes. And suddenly, he begins to see through eyes that were once blinded, that have now, the things that used to hold so much meaning mean nothing to him anymore. And he starts to find the true meaning of life. The things of the temporal have given way to the eternal things. And as I look at this lost son kneeling, let's go back to the other painting of the prodigal son here. As I see this young man kneeling, I see a broken Rembrandt kneeling before Father God, coming back home. And as I looked at this lost son kneeling before his father, I see the once arrogant artist, once from the one from the brothel, coming back home. Let's read it again. Luke 15, verse 12. The young one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had and set off for a distant country, and there he squandered his wealth in wild living. Give me my share of the estate. Now I want you to think about this. This was the same as wishing that his father was dead. How many of you guys, your parents own a house? Raise your hand if your parents own a house. This would be like you going up to them and saying, "Hey, I know you're going to die one day and I'm going to get my portion of it, but really I would kind of like you to die now. But since you can't die now and I would get in trouble for murder, how about you just sell your house, break it up, give me the liquid assets, and my brother can have his, and I'm going to go on living." It's like saying, I wish you were dead so that I can go live my life how I want to live my life. I feel like I'm constricted. Your ways are kind of, it's not cool to hang out with mom and dad on Friday night. I want to go out and do my own thing, so give me my money so I can go do that. That would be what it would be like. But the problem is your parents are still living off of that estate right now. So basically you're taking money away from them that they would be living on, that they're going to sell, you're going to sell when they die. It's saying, "Father, I can't wait for you to die." This is the same from the beginning of human history. This is the same story. Romans 1:21 says, although humanity, we people knew God, we neither glorified him as God, we didn't give him the credit, nor did we give thanks to him for making us, for breathing life into us, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Verse 25, they exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and they worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator. It is at the heart of sin, at the very beginning in the garden, is that we want to be God. Some people say the root of sin is money. No. The root of sin is pride. Maybe. The root of sin, if you want to boil it down, if you want to boil sin down in, every sin that you do, every sin that I do, every sin that humanity does, every child soldier, Coney kind of thing going on, every kind of rape, every murder, everything where we take advantage, cheat on our taxes, it all goes down to one thing. We all want to be God. We do. Well, where are you pulling that, Mikey? Let's look. Genesis 3. The serpent comes to Adam. He's like, "No, you're not going to die. God told you you're going to die. Psh, you're not going to die." The serpent said to the woman, "But your eyes will be opened and you will be like God." And that was the thing that Adam wanted to have. He wanted to be God. It's like, if I take this fruit, I could be autonomous. I could make not only my own decisions with my own free will, but I could also choose my own consequences. I can go and do whatever I want and not have to pay for it at all. That was what's going through Adam's mind. At the root of all sin is us wanting to be God. So this young man, he leaves for a distant country. This is a cutting loose away from my dad's values. Dad, I know you think all of this kind of stuff, but you're just crazy. I'm going to make my own path. I'm cutting away from your values. The distant country is a world that promises fun and excitement and the college experience, right? It's like, man, you're going to get everything that you can get out there. And I'm not going to waste a moment. All the beer and women a man could want, all the attention and worship from a man that a woman could want. Never a dull moment, never a time to be bored. If there's a moment of silence, man, we're going to go party it up. That's the distant country. The distant country says, I know the Bible says this is good and this is bad, but surely I won't die if I do these things. That, in fact, the Bible, it's an ancient book written by primitive humanity, and we've learned so much, and as a society, we've come so far from where we were. We're beating racism and sexism and gender roles, and that book is just, it's constricting. Dad's values are old, they're dumb, and they were good for their time, but we've really evolved past that now. The distant country says we don't need that moralistic book of rules. We understand things that they didn't. The distant country says, you know, God's given me a lot, sure, but I need more than what God has given me. It says, I know better than God what's good for me, because really, ice cream's pretty good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it won't kill me. It's good. I'm not against ice cream. Besides, I had some this week, actually yesterday. But I surely won't die. What the distant country says. It promises freedom, but it gives you bondage. It promises life, but it gives you death. Leaving home means we're ignoring the truth that God has knitted me in my mother's womb, that He designed me for a specific purpose, that He made me for a specific purpose. It's taking that and saying, my design is different. I'm different than that. I know what's best for me. Leaving home is living as though I do not yet have a home, and I got to keep looking for one. I don't have a home yet. Yeah, God, I like your house. I'm going to go find my own thing. I'm going to be my own man. Like when you ask somebody to hang out with you on a Friday night, and they kind of hem-haw around like, yeah, I might be free. Basically what they're doing, what they're saying to you is, yeah, I might hang out with you, but if something cooler comes along, I'm totally ditching you to go hang out with somebody else, right? Yeah, now I know nobody in this room has never done that. You never ditch somebody, right, for something cooler, right? Anybody? Hey, if that's you, just keep looking forward. We'll have our altar call at the end of the service. It's going to be fine. It's this saying, I don't want to tie myself down to good when I could have more. You know? You're hanging out with the guys, and then some girl calls up your friend, and he's like, dude, you understand, right? I mean, I got to go, right? I got to go. Like, what the heck? We're having a guys' night. What are you doing? Go. Well, you understand. You understand. It's like, no. You don't break a commitment to go hang out with somebody else because you get more, better. Leaving home, distant country. Home is where I can hear the voice that says, this is what home is. Home says, I can hear the voice, you are my beloved son, and on you my favor rests. Why is it that we feel this sense? I remember I was in junior high. You know, junior high sucks so bad, right? Nobody wants to go back to junior high. Some of you people are going to have to be teachers of junior high kids, and I feel so bad for you, but I was in junior high, and I remember I broke my dad's heart one night. He wanted to go with me to the football game, right? My dad, right? My dad, he loves me. And we wrestle, man. To this day, I'll just punch him and the same thing with me and Eli. We do the same thing. We punch each other. That's how we show love to each other. It's amazing. We wrestle. And Mom's like, that's why I can't have nice things. We break a lot of things in my dad's house. Well, we were going to, these girls, what we did, we liked to get blow pops, right? And then get the gum out of it, and then you'd walk behind the stands, and you'd make out with this girl, right? And then she would walk out with the gum, and then, listen, hey, junior high, baby, junior high, yeah, that's how it went. Yeah. Or she would have it, and you would end up with it. It's the same, okay? I believe in equality. I believe in equality. I believe in it. Oh, yeah. You guys don't do that? You guys don't even French kiss anymore, do you? It's like oh, you do. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I'm just gonna keep back over here for a minute. We're going to this football game, and I want to meet these girls, right? And my dad's like, "Hey, Mikey, you want to go to the game?" He's excited about it. He loves football. And I'm like, nah. I got some girls to go hang out with. And my dad's like, oh, okay, all right. I was like, I felt horrible. I felt so bad. And that's when I was getting into my bad phase, and I was like, Dad, screw you and your values. I hate all that. You know, the Bible and church, making me go to church all the time. Like, I just want to go out and do my own thing and do all these things that promise so much freedom. And I just remember just feeling so bad. Home is where you can hear the voice that says, you are my beloved, and on you my favor rests. Some of you aren't home tonight. Even some of you Christians are half home and half away because you can't imagine God saying, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're like, oh yeah, but Mike, you don't know what I did yesterday. Does that change that he loves you? Home is a place of laughter and acceptance and unconditional love. Home is where you don't have to impress anybody. Let me ask you this. Is there anything you do at home that you wouldn't do in public? Is there anything you wear maybe at home that you wouldn't wear in public? Not some of you guys. You wear freaking onesies here. It's crazy. Some of you guys are completely uninhibited, which is great. Home is where you don't have to impress anybody. Man, when I think about a father's love, I think about Macy and Eli, these crazy kids here. Yeah, look at that crazy kid. He's nuts, man. He's freaking nuts. She's like sweet as can be, and he's just like, he'll just say the craziest crap. He'll just say the craziest crap. And it doesn't matter what they do. I'm crazy about him, man. And I've made it my goal that no boy will ever have to come in and fill some void of her heart that her dad hasn't already filled, right? She doesn't have to ever have somebody tell her, yeah. That's right. She's never gonna have to wonder if she's pretty and have some boy tell her. Her dad tells her every single day. Eli, the other day, I'm like, Eli, hey, I love you. He's like, I know, Dad, you tell me all the time. So I never want you to have that void of feeling like you were not loved. You know what I mean? I never want you to feel like you couldn't do everything. And even whenever they do stuff that's like bad, they do, things that kids do. That doesn't change my love for these kids. I remember, it's so crazy. Like when you're in junior high and high school and college, it's like you're doing everything you can to impress these people, but then you think back to home. Home is where you don't have to impress people. It's like they love you. It doesn't matter how you perform. It's like they're crazy about you. They don't care if you messed everything up or whatever. They're still going to love you at the end of the day. Where people that you're trying to impress seem to, they didn't live up to so we're kind of done with you. You know what I'm saying? Home is a place of safety. It's a place where you are unconditionally loved just because you're you. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now, I don't know that everybody came from families like that. But I'm telling you, that was the design. And the enemy he's trying to attack marriage, and he's trying to attack the picture of the father. He's trying to attack the picture of marriage, what a good marriage is like, by divorce all over. And then fatherhood, fatherless homes. He's trying to destroy those two pictures of God because those two pictures show us so much about who he is in our lives. Those are the two biggest pictures of who God is, and the enemy is attacking those. Home is where I don't have to put on a show. I can just be myself. When we had Macy, it was crazy. We would just lay on the bed on a Friday night and just look at her, and every move she made, we would just be so happy with. It was hilarious. Like, you won't understand that until you have a kid, and you won't be that way about other kids. They just drool and they pick boogers and do weird crap and poop their pants. But when it's your kid, it's different. It's different. And it's like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember looking up at Carrie, like, we've been looking at it for an hour. We didn't even want to go to a movie. Like, this is our entertainment now. That's how God thinks about you. That's how God thinks about you. Home is when it doesn't matter what anyone says about you out there, what their truth claims. They try, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. It doesn't really matter. They can say whatever they want because what's real is what my Father told me at home. Amen? We're talking in a spiritual sense here. Yet over and over and over, I leave home. To this day, as a preacher, day by day, minute by minute, I still leave home. I flee to the hands of blessing, and I run out to this faraway place in search of more something or fulfillment or more life, more than what I think God maybe has for me. I remember when I became a Christian, I thought God was going to limit me, that I was going to be so bound up and constricted by all these rules and I couldn't do things. That happened to my brother. He got saved when he was 12. And on the way back home from youth camp, this kid started telling him all the things he had to stop doing and listening to and how he had to dress and all this. He felt so constricted. He's like, I can't do it. Became an atheist and is to this day. And I remember thinking, man, I was going down that same road, and I'm like, I know God is real, but his ways are so constricting. They hold me back from all this goodness. I guess, okay, God, you got me. You're stronger than me, and might is right, so I guess I'll just submit to you. To this day, in the back of my mind, there are parts of me that want to run away from home in search of something else besides home, something else that promises fulfillment. In this painting, he comes back home. He comes back home, and he's seen some things out there. And in this moment, it almost seems timeless, the way the Father's just holding him. It's almost like this snapshot, but it feels like it lasts forever. And here's the onlookers that we talked about. This boy, he's seen it all out there, man. He's seen all the promises of the world, and he's come home, and he's like, you know what? Forget all that stuff. I forget about all that stuff. This is what really matters. This is what I've been looking for all along, and it was here the whole time. And he's oblivious to the voices of the onlookers, of these spectators. He's oblivious to them while they're whispering, while the Father is whispering, "I love you," and maybe the bystanders are whispering, "Oh man, why'd he come home?" Or "Man, he better be sorry for what he did." Or, "Oh my God, look what he's wearing. OMG. Look how far the apple has fallen from the tree. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Did you hear? Oh my gosh. Did you see what he was wearing? It was not Louis Vuitton, I tell you. What is going on with this guy?" But the Father's voice is whispering, "It took a lot of courage and humility to come home, son. I'm proud of you. Wait, this is the guy that's been out in the brothels. This is the guy that," he says, "I'm proud of you." What? See, that's what we don't understand sometimes is God's arms are around us saying, "I'm proud of you." Why? Because you're back. He loves you. While the onlookers were looking at how far he fell, the Father was looking that he came back. Somebody came to the altar one time, and I was praying with him, "Mikey, I'm struggling with pornography." And I said, "Awesome." And he looked at me and said, "What?" And I said, "Well, it means you're still fighting. That's great. It means you haven't given up. If you're wrestling against pornography, it means you're still fighting. You haven't given up the battle yet. That's awesome." While others would say, "Oh, that's so horrible," I'm saying, "Good job. Keep fighting." The Father is looking, and he's saying, "I'm proud of you. I love you. You are my beloved son. Nothing has changed that. And I am well pleased with you. I'm so glad you're home." But the voices of the world, they're so loud, aren't they? The world is screaming at us through megaphones, all kinds of things. So that hearing this voice of God through all this turmoil is so hard. I don't know if you remember the story. Elijah tries to go and he gets alone with God and he's looking for the voice. "Okay, God, speak to me. I'm ready." And this tornado comes tearing through the valley. It messes up. And it's like so loud, like this hurricane that we can't explain. And it's so big. And it says God's voice was not in the tornado. And then an earthquake comes and just tears up everything and shakes the whole earth that he's standing on. And it says the voice of God was not in the earthquake. And then a fire comes and destroys everything, the loudness. I don't know if you've ever seen, but there are fire tornadoes created by the heat. And it is just amazing what fire can do. But God wasn't in that. Where was God? God was in, it said, the still small voice, the whisper that he was whispering to Elijah. He's like, "Elijah." But here's the problem. When the tornadoes and whenever the earthquakes and when the fires are raging all around us, trying to tell us, trying to get our attention, trying to tell us what's real and what's not real, we have a really hard time tuning our radio into that really small channel, far, far away, very small, and you hear just a whisper of truth. And if you're not careful, you will pass right over it. You will become popular. You will become rich. You will have all the things you ever needed. If you're not careful, you'll skip right over that channel and you won't hear the true meaning of life. You'll miss out on it all. God's voice was in the still, small whisper. But these other voices in our lives are so seductive, and they say, go out and prove yourself. Prove that you're worth something. In fact, as soon as the voice of God came down on Jesus, the voice of the Father, the dove of the Holy Spirit, and the body of Jesus Christ, the Trinity, all in one, the Father's voice comes down and says, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Guess what happens? The very next minute, he goes out into the wilderness, and the devil's voice is waiting for him, yelling, saying, hey, guess what? If you're something, you better prove yourself, that you can be popular to earn your keep here, that you're really God. You got to prove yourself. That's what the voices of the world tells you. You don't have to prove yourself at home. You don't have to prove yourself to a loving God. But you have to prove yourself to a world that says you're worth nothing if you can't do this or this or this. That's who I'm going to listen to, is the people who are so important and you feel so small. The other voices in our lives are very seductive. They say, go out and prove that you're worth listening to, that you're worth my time. I leave home every time I choose to believe the other voices over God's voice that calls me beloved. Do you know that God calls you beloved? Not screw up. Not whatever other word you've put. That's the words of the other people. That's the whispers of the enemy. That's not God's whisper. He's crazy about you. I leave home anytime I choose to believe the other voices and say, yeah, God, but you have to love me because you're God. Or, yeah, Mom, yeah, you think that other people are just jealous. Well, Mom, maybe I do just suck at this, and therefore my worth is based on that. And that's what other people say, right? And I leave home every time I choose to believe the other voices over the voice of God. These other voices start drawing me away to this far-off country. It's easy to see when this is happening. This is how you know. When you've walked away from God's kingdom, his presence, his house, his peace. You've walked away from all that awesome fridge that you can just go up to at any time. Cooper loves that fridge. And God it's bigger than the one at the Wesley. And you've walked away from that because you heard there's something better somewhere else. Because one person said, yeah, you're not all that. And then why? We begin to listen to that person, the one critic, rather than the God who loves us and is crazy about us and the people that love us. The person that gets your attention every time is the one who said, you're all right, but you could have done better. And we might have 100 people that say, we love you, you're so great. But we listen to the one voice. We give and it draws us away to this far-off land. We listen to the one voice. I can tell when I've left home when I react with anger or resentment. I just find these emotional allergic reactions. Anger, resentment, jealousy. Where did that come from? Desire for revenge or lust or greed or rivalries with other people. I start talking bad about other people. I can tell I've left home. That's not what happens in God's house. Those are the obvious signs that I've left home in some way. And before I'm even fully aware of it, I find myself wondering why someone hurt me, or rejected me, or didn't pay attention to me. Without realizing it, I find myself brooding about someone else's success. Well, who cares about that guy? I'm awesome too. My own loneliness. Why am I all alone? The way someone else did me wrong. I find myself brooding about these things. I'm afraid of being disliked or blamed or put aside or passed over or ignored, forgotten, made fun of. A little criticism can make me angry, and a little rejection can make me depressed even. A little praise raises my spirit. A little success excites me. The very little that it takes very little to raise me up, and then just a little to thrust me down. See, you can tell you've left home when you're like this boat on a rocking ocean, and things can go good, and you're boom, and then one person says something, and then bam, you're down in the dumps because you don't have that solidity. It's like your house is built on the sand instead of on the rock of what God says you are. Who am I? And so, in being tossed in this emotional roller coaster of a sea of other people's opinions, and in doing so, I move farther and farther away from my Father's house, and I choose to dwell in this distant land. I put myself into bondage because the world is filled with ifs. The world loves you if you are good looking, if you're intelligent, if you are wealthy, if you're funny, if you're fun to be around, if you're not a drag, if hanging around you makes me raise up in status, but if hanging around you makes me look bad to others, I'm not going to hang around you. That's the distant land. This world is always conditional love. This world does not give you unconditional love. You'll go out trying to prove yourself only to fall flat on your face and they laugh at you. That's not what happens at home. God scoops you up and loves on you. I think about a girl who I was a youth camp counselor several years ago. I've watched this girl since 2010. She got on fire at church camp and came to life with Jesus. And she was in my small group, man, I mean, it was the real deal. Like, God was real in her heart. And I would watch just the snapshots of her life through Facebook as time went on, and she would get all boy crazy, and then she got into drugs, and then she got into all these weird, like, things, like free the nips and just all this weird stuff. You know what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, fine, whatever, gender equality, whatever, and it gets in this, like, crazy thing, and then she's in rehab. Now, here's this little girl who's like, you know, maybe 24 by now, wishing she'd never, you know, taken drugs, wishing she had never done these things. And I just get to thinking about my little girl, my 10-year-old girl, you know, and I'm like, you know, what did this girl walk away from? You know, that, you know, like dad, you know, if something's wrong, dad's going to take care of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, you don't have to go find yourself out there somewhere. God already says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You were knit in your mother's womb. You are a conqueror. You're the best that there is. We love you. But we choose to walk away. I'm a prodigal son every time I search for unconditional love in a place where I can't find it, where it won't be found. The only place to find unconditional love is through the love of God. It's the only place. Beneath all of this walking away is this great rebellion, this radical no to the Father's love. This unspoken curse, God, I wish you were dead, because if you were dead, I could be God. Because I think I know better than you. We'll see how the story continues. Verse 14. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. He spent all his money. So he went and he hired himself out to a citizen of the country who sent him into the field to feed the pigs. There's so much we could talk about. We're just going to keep going. He longs to fill his stomach with the pods, just the slop of the pigs that they were eating. And he finds himself probably in this weird moment. It's like, man, I'm so hungry right now. I just want to eat what the pigs are eating. And he probably got in trouble for it because no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, finally woke up, like, what am I doing? How many of my father's hired servants, I mean, the slaves even, have food and food to spare because dad is a good guy. And here I am starving to death, and I'm a son. I will set out and I'm going to go back to my father. I'm going to say, Father, man, I'm so sorry. I sinned against heaven and against you. I am not even worthy to be called your son. Just make me one of your slaves or hired servants. So he gets up and he goes back on this long road home. When he returns in this painting, he's bald. He doesn't have the long curly locks and all the things that distinguished him as a rich guy anymore. Now this is what they would do with slaves. They would shave their heads and they became a number, not a person, not an identity. That's what the world does. The world has a mold. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but the world has a mold, and if you don't fit it, man, you are an outcast. They will do everything they can to shape you into their mold. And here they have tried to shape him. And here he is, head is shaven, no longer the curly hair of the brothel. His clothes are undergarments. He doesn't have the robes he used to have that his dad now wears, barely covering his body. The soles of his feet tell a story of a long and humiliating journey. The left foot slipped out of his worn sandal and is scarred. You can see all the scars on it. The right foot, only partially covered by a broken sandal, speaks of misery and suffering and humility. Just like humiliation that he suffered out there. This man lost everything except one thing. You can see it, his sword, right there on his side. He's lost everything but his sword. I want you to hear me now. The only remaining sign of his dignity is a short sword hanging from his hip, this badge of nobility that he's still his father's son. Even the lowest pig pen, even in then, he didn't sell his dagger. He clung to this truth that he was still his father's son. And when we look at the two stories of Peter and Judas, Judas sold his sword and he killed himself. Peter also failed God, but he came back. He kept his sword. This is the story of Peter just as much as it is the prodigal son, just as much as it is the story of Rembrandt or any one of us. Besides the outer consequences that we see from the outside is this inner consequence that the farther I run away from home, hear me now, the farther I run away from home, the harder it is to hear his voice. He could be yelling, but I could be so far away, it just sounds like a whisper. The farther I get away from home, the less things make sense, the less things, everything is crazy, everything is confusing. Sin complicates everything, every decision. And the simplicity of God's peace is so far away, I can't even imagine what being home is like. And so I start putting ideas about who God is on top of it. I start superimposing those ideas on top of God. Well, he must be angry with me. He must be mad at me. He must be so upset. He'll never let me come home. If I walked into a church, I'd catch on fire. I can't imagine. You see what I'm saying? The farther we get away from God, the farther we run away from home, into the arms of the world, the less we hear that voice that says, you're still my kid. You're still my beloved, in whom I'm well pleased. And it's this rediscovery of his deepest self that snaps him into his right mind. He's sitting there with these pigs. He's sitting there eating, desiring to eat the slop of the pigs. And then he realizes as he's sitting there next to this pig that I'm not a pig. What am I doing next to all these pigs? What am I doing with these pigs and wanting to eat what the pigs eat? What am I doing here? I'm not a pig. In fact, I'm a human being, and I'm not just a human being. I'm the son of a freaking royal king. I'm the son of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Why am I spending time hanging out with the pigs and eating vomit and slop and getting muddy and all this crazy stuff? This isn't what God had for me. And it's in that moment that everything else is stripped away. The hair, the clothes, the beer, the women, all the stuff is gone. And all he's left with is these very few things. And the one sword that reminds him that he's his father's son. And he sits next to a pig and realizes he's not a pig and says, you know what, I'm going to go home now. I think I've had enough. And it's not until all those things are ripped away that you actually see the true meaning of life. And I feel so sorry for popular and beautiful and rich people, because it says it's easier, not impossible, but it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get to heaven. Why? Because he has everything he needs. It's not until all those things are stripped away that that's a true gift, that you can maybe tune into the right channel. Maybe, just maybe, hear the voice of God say, you are my beloved son. You don't need all those things. That what really matters in life is not what's here in the temporal world, but what's in the eternal. If you're lucky, you'll have a moment of clarity. You'll be able to hear the voice of God, and you'll turn and go back home where you are created to be, but most people won't. They won't listen. It was the loss of everything that brought him to the bottom line of his identity. The only thing he had left was that he's his father's son. Scripture says it like this in Deuteronomy 30:19. God says, I'm offering you life and death. I'm offering you life, home, or I'm offering you death. I'm letting you choose. You can choose. I'm not going to choose for you. I believe in free will. I created the universe for it. But I want you to choose life so that you and your kids, your descendants might live. Choose. I am offering you life or death, blessings or cursings. Choose life. Please, for the love of God, choose life so that you may live. So the question is, will you wallow in your lostness and lose touch with your true identity, that you are your father's son, created in God's image? This happens. I wallow in the mud with these pigs when I believe these statements that I'm no good, that I'm worthless, that I'm unlovable, that I'm a nobody, that I'm a waste of space. I fall into this trap. But leaving the foreign country is only the beginning. He gets up and he starts walking home. He plays it over and over in his mind. Okay, what am I going to say? How am I going to explain to him all the things that I've done and all the girls that I slept with and all what I spent his money on, and what am I going to, I gotta come up with a plan because, there's a lot of stuff going on here. He plays it over and over in his mind how his father's going to receive him. And because he's gotten so far away from the father, he starts thinking about, he starts putting his own self onto his father. Well, if my son came back, I would probably say, well, good luck, you can go eat with the pigs. That's not the father, though. Have you ever created a conversation in your head with somebody that's not there? Today. I have so many conversations in my head. Okay, so if they say this, it's like this ping pong match. Well, if they say this, then I'll say that. And if they say that, then I'll say this. And if they say that, then I'll say this. And I'll win. We have all these wasted emotions on conversations that will never happen because you get into conversation with this person and it doesn't ever end up that way. And we waste so much of our emotional energy on that, don't we? And here he is walking home saying to himself, well, I'm going home, but maybe I'll just have to be God's slave, maybe I could just be one of the servants or something like that. I'm going home, but I don't know what I'm going home to. The reason we think this is clear. I still don't think God is good. I still don't think that he's benevolent. I still don't think that he's kind. I still don't think that he's forgiving because I can't see it. I wouldn't be forgiving. I can't see his love being unconditional because my love isn't really unconditional. If we want to be honest, we put conditions on it. Unless we're so transformed by his love, we are always putting conditions on our love. And here I am superimposing myself on him. But no, I was made in his image. He wasn't made in mine. He's thinking about this love of God as conditional. Maybe I could just receive him a minimal punishment. Maybe I can show him, I'll never do it again. God, I'll never do it again. I'll try really, really hard this time, and I'm going to stop sinning. I promise, God, I won't. Maybe you'll receive me if I just am good enough. And in this picture of God, God still remains harsh and not benevolent. He wants you to come home. He's not mad. He's waiting. He's waiting for you. You might have been running from God for a long time. Maybe you started serving God last year, and then this year, over the summer, maybe you ran away. You think, man, I've gone too far, and maybe this moment, maybe something happened. I don't know, maybe you just ended up here. And you didn't mean to end up here, but you ended up here, and you realized for the second that you got the sword still attached to your hip, that you hadn't sold out on life yet, and there's still a chance to come home. And if you will, God will take you. With all the white sheets of the whole world, He'll take you back in His arms. God's crazy about you. I look out my window and I look at college students walking around, buried in their phone, walking here and there, and I plead with God. And I say, God, would you wake them up? Would you show them that there's more to life out there than all the things that are happening right now? Would you show them, God, that there is home to come home to? I beg Him to just let a moment of clarity slip through so that you can choose life. I'll give my whole life to it so that you can choose life. God's ready for you. Let's close our eyes tonight. If you're here tonight and you say, I have run away from God. I am not a Christian. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. Or maybe you've never been, but you want to be. Tonight you say, Mikey, when you talked about home and you talk about this loving God, this God that I realize how far I've gotten away from God because I have superimposed my own flesh on His face and I've made Him a mean God, but never He's a benevolent God. I'm running from God right now, and I want to turn my life back. I want to come home. I'm going to drive by, and I'm going to see if there's any sheets hanging out, and I'm going to see if God will have me back. And they're out, ready for you to come home. If that's you, would you stand? Who cares what anyone else thinks? Thank you. Who cares? You don't have to impress anybody. God is so excited about you coming home. Yes. Yes. You don't have to run anymore. He's not giving up on you. He's not giving up on you.